We are joined today by my kitty, who may or may not stay still and run around my room. They make appearances all over these videos. But we are still in the book of Matthew, not for too much longer, but for the rest of April. And we are in Matthew 22, and we're going to go all the way to 25 today. So I hope you enjoy, and I hope that you hear whatever needs to be heard. Whenever you need to receive, keep an open mind, keep an open heart. Okay, she dipped out. I hope you keep an open mind and an open heart. All right. Parable of the Great Feast. 22. Jesus also told them about other parables. He said, "The kingdom of heaven can be illustrated by the story of a king who prepared a great wedding feast for his son. When the banquet was ready, he sent his servants to notify those who were invited. But they all refused to come. So he sent other servants to tell them, 'The feast has been prepared, the bulls and fattened cattle have been killed, and everything is ready. Come to the banquet.' But the guests he had invited ignored them and went their own way, one onto his farm, another to his business. Others seized his messengers and insulted and killed them. The king was furious, and he sent out his army to destroy the murderers and burn their town. And he said to his servants, 'The wedding feast is ready, and the guests I invited aren't worthy of the honor. Now go out to the street corners and invite everyone you see.' So the servants brought in everyone they could find, good and bad alike, and the banquet hall was filled with guests. But when the king came in to meet the guests, he noticed a man who wasn't wearing the proper clothes for a wedding. 'Friend,' he asked, 'how is it that you are here without wedding clothes?' But the man had no reply. Then the king said to the aides, 'Bind his hands and feet and throw him into the outer darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. For many are called, but few are chosen.'" That parable is almost like the one we read last time, where the master of the house sends out servants to collect the money, and then he sends his son, and then they end up killing his son. That parable is suspiciously close to the last one that we read. Taxes for Caesar. Matthew 22:15. When the Pharisees met together to plot how to trap Jesus into saying something for he could be arrested, they sent some of their disciples along with the supporters of Herod to meet with him. "Teacher," they said, "we know how honest you are. You teach the way of God truthfully. You are impartial and don't play favorites. Now tell us what you think about this. Is it right to pay taxes to Caesar or not?" This is a mighty trap that they have him in here, because if he says it is right to pay taxes, the Jewish people will hate him. But if he says, no, we shouldn't pay taxes, the Roman officers can also arrest him. So it's tricky what they have him in here, but he's so smart and so wise. And Jesus, knowing their evil motives, says, "You hypocrites, why are you trying to trap me? Here, show me the coin used for tax." When they handed him a Roman coin, he asked, "Whose picture and title are stamped on it?" "Caesar's," they replied. "Well then, give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar, and give to God what belongs to God." His reply to them had them amazed, and they went away. Can't trick Jesus. Can't trick Jesus? Don't even try. Matthew 22:23. Discussion about resurrection. That same day, Jesus was approached by some Sadducees, religious leaders who say there is no resurrection from the dead. They posed this question: "Teacher, Moses said if a man dies without children, his brother should marry the widow and have a child who will carry on the brother's name. Well, suppose there were 7 brothers. The oldest one married and then died without children, so his brother married the widow. But the second brother also died. Last of all, the woman also died. So tell us, whose wife will she be in the resurrection? For all 7 married her." Jesus replied, "Your mistake is that you don't know the scriptures, and you don't know the power of God. For when the dead rise, they will neither marry nor be given in marriage. In this respect, they will be like the angels in heaven. But now, as to whether there will be a resurrection of the dead, haven't you ever read about this in scriptures? Long after Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob had died, God said, 'I am the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob.' So he is the God of the living, not the dead." When the crowds hear him, they were astounded at his teaching. Yeah, it just rolls off the tongue. Everything he says is just mouth dropping and perfect. Ooh, this one is my favorite. The most important commandment. Matthew 22:34. But when the Pharisees heard that he had silenced the Sadducees with his reply, they met together to question him again. One of them, an expert in religious law, tried to trap him with this question: "Teacher, which is the most important commandment of the law of Moses?" Jesus replied, "You must love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your mind. This is the greatest commandment. A second is equally important: love your neighbor as yourself. The entire law and all the demands of the prophets are based on these 2 commandments." Those are my 2 favorite laws of God as well. So we're just going to read that one more time. You must love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your mind. And love your neighbor as yourself. What other 2 commandments would you want to live by? Those are so beautiful. So beautiful. Whose son is the Messiah? 22:41. Then, surrounded by the Pharisees, Jesus asked them a question. "What do you think about the Messiah? Whose son is he?" They replied, "He is the son of David." Jesus responded, "Then why does David, speaking under the inspiration of the Spirit, call the Messiah my Lord? For David said, 'The Lord said to my Lord, sit in the place of honor at my right hand until I humble your enemies beneath your feet.' Since David called the Messiah my Lord, how can the Messiah be his son?" No one could answer him. And after that, no one dared to ask him any more questions. This is so good. For he is a descendant of David in human flesh, right? That is the point. That is a prophet, a prophecy that he's fulfilling. But also, David, in his time, knew the Messiah is not him. It's not going to be him. It's not going to be his son. It is part of God. It is God's son. So that's just beautifully written with his words there. He's like, "Oh, okay, so David referred to me as his son? No? Oh. Oh, guess he's the son of God then. Because he called him Lord." Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Here, we'll put it right on this pillow here. Alright, we are on to chapter 23. Jesus criticizes the religious leaders. I happen to really like this one. I love when he calls out the hypocrisy. I really do. Then Jesus said to the crowds and to his disciples, "The teachers of religious law and the Pharisees are the official interpreters of the law of Moses." And they failed. "So practice and obey whatever they tell you, but don't follow their example, because they don't live by what they say. For they don't practice what they preach. They crush people with unbearable religious demands and never lift a finger to ease the burden. Yep. Everything they do is for show. On their arms, they wear extra wide prayer boxes with scripture verses inside, and they wear robes with extra long tassels. And they love to sit at the head of the table at banquets and the seats of honor in the synagogues. They love to receive respectful greetings as they walk in the marketplace and be called rabbi. Don't let anyone call you rabbi, for you have only one teacher, and all of you are equal as brothers and sisters. And don't address anyone here on earth as Father, for only God in heaven is your Father. And don't let anyone call you teacher, for you have only one teacher, the Messiah. The greatest among you must be a servant, but those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. What sorrow awaits you, teachers of religious law, and you Pharisees, hypocrites! For you shut the door of the kingdom of heaven in people's faces. You won't go in yourselves, and you don't let others in either. What sorrow awaits you, teachers of religious law and Pharisees? Oh, sorry, I read that one. There we go. Sorry. He says, hypocrites, for you cross land and sea to make one convert. Then you turn that person into twice the child of hell you yourselves are. Blind guides, what sorrow awaits you? For you say that it beats nothing to swear by God's temple, but that is binding to swear by the gold in the temple. Blind fools, which is more important, the gold or the temple that makes the gold sacred? And you say that to swear by the altar is not binding, but to swear by the gifts on the altar is binding. How blind! For which is more important, the gift of the altar or the altar that makes the gift sacred? When you swear by the altar, you are swearing by it and everything on it. And when you swear by the temple, you are swearing by it and by God who lives in it. And when you swear by heaven, you are swearing by the throne of God and by God who sits on the throne. I love what he's saying here. What sorrow awaits you, teachers of religious law, and you Pharisees, hypocrites! For you are careful to tithe even the tiniest income from your herb gardens, and you ignore the most important aspect of the law: justice, mercy, and faith. You should tithe, yes, but do not neglect the more important things. Blind guides, you strain your water so you don't accidentally swallow a gnat, but you swallow a camel. So sorry. Oh, he's laying down facts right now. Sorry. What sorrow awaits you, teachers of religious law and Pharisees, hypocrites! For you are so careful to clean the outside of the cup and the dish, but inside you are filthy, full of greed and self-indulgence. You blind Pharisee! First wash the inside of the cup and the dish, and then the outside will be clean too. What sorrow awaits you, teachers of religious law and Pharisees, hypocrites! For you are like whitewashed tombs, beautiful on the outside, but filled on the inside with dead people's bones and all sorts of impurity. Outwardly, you look like religious people, but inwardly, your hearts are filled with hypocrisy and lawlessness. What sorrow awaits you, teachers of religious law, and you Pharisees, hypocrites! For you build tombs for the prophets your ancestors killed, and you decorate the monuments of the godly people your ancestors destroyed. Then you say, if we had lived in the days of our ancestors, we would never have joined them in killing the prophets. But in saying that, you testify against yourselves that you are indeed the descendants of those who murdered the prophets. Go ahead and finish what your ancestors started. Snakes, sons of vipers, how will you escape the judgment of hell? Therefore, I am sending you prophets and wise men and teachers of religious law, but you will kill some by crucifixion, and you will flog others with whips in your synagogues, chasing them from city to city. As a result, you will be held responsible for the murder of all godly people of all time, from the murder of the righteous Abel to the murder of Zechariah, son of Berechiah, whom you killed in the temple, because the sanctuary and the altar. I tell you the truth, this judgment will fall on this very generation. That was a lot, and I wanted to keep going and to be spitting facts here, because this is just so true. Everything he says here, and he's directly calling out their hypocrisies, right? This is what you're doing. This is why it's wrong. This is why you've taken this intention of God and you've ran over this way with it. And he's saying that you sit on, your throne of righteousness. Like, you are on your high horse. And you're like, if we lived back then, we would have known the prophets. We would have believed them. We would have helped them. We would never have been like our ancestors who killed them and stoned them and whipped them. We would never. We would never. We're better than that. We are holier than that. And then Jesus is like, look at where you are now. Look at where you are now. Look at what you're doing. And look at how you're treating me. You are the exact same way as your descendants, and worse. All of these accusations, pure truth. Pure truth. And I imagine he said this with some frustration, probably some anger, but it was all truth. Because that's what Jesus speaks, all truth. It is perfect word. Alright. Jesus grieves over Jerusalem. 23:37. O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, the city that kills the prophets and stones God's messengers. How often I have wanted to gather your children together as a hen protects her chicks beneath her wings, but you wouldn't let me. And now look at your house. It's abandoned and desolate. For I tell you this, you will never see me again until you say, blessings on the one who comes in the name of the Lord. I can't even imagine how upsetting it would be to see this holy city and what was once an intention of this city be completely decimated by evil and by greed and money and lawlessness and, hypocrisy that he was saying here. And I can't imagine Jesus's feelings on that as he's looking at all of this corruption. Jesus speaks about the future. Matthew 24. As Jesus was leaving the temple grounds, his disciples pointed out to him the various temple buildings, but he responded, do you see all these buildings? I tell you the truth, they will completely be demolished. Not one stone will be left on top of another. Later, Jesus sat on the Mount of Olives. His disciples came to him privately and said, tell us, when will all this happen? What sign will signal your return and the end of the world? Jesus told them, don't let anyone mislead you, for many will come in my name, claiming I am the Messiah. They will deceive many, and you will hear of wars and threats of wars, but don't panic. Yes, these things must take place, but the end won't follow immediately. Nation will go to war against nation, and the kingdom against God. There will be famines and earthquakes in many parts of the world, but all this is only the first of the birth pains, with more to come. Then you will be arrested, persecuted, and killed, and you will be hated all over the world because you are my followers. And many will turn away from me and betray and hate each other. And many false prophets will appear and will deceive many people. Sin will be rampant everywhere, and the love of many will grow cold. But the one who endures till the end will be saved. And the good news about the kingdom will be preached throughout the whole world so that all nations will hear it, and then the end will come. The day is coming when you will see that Daniel the prophet spoke about, the sacrilegious object that causes desecration, standing in the holy place. Then those in Judea must flee to the hills. A person out on the deck of a roof must not go down into the house to pack. A person out in the field must not return even for a coat. How terrible it will be for pregnant women and for nursing mothers in those days. And pray that your flight will not be in winter or on the Sabbath, for there will be greater anguish than at any time since the world began, and it will never be so great again. In fact, unless the time of calamity is shortened, not a single person will survive, but it will be shortened for the sake of God's chosen ones. Then if anyone tells you, "Look, here is the Messiah," or "There he is," I don't believe it. For false messiahs and false prophets will rise up and perform great signs and wonders so as to deceive, if possible, even God's chosen ones. See, I have warned you ahead of time. So if someone tells you, "Look, the Messiah is out in the desert," don't go and bother look. Or, "Look, he is hiding here." Don't believe it. For as the lightning flashes in the east and shines in the west, so it will be when the Son of Man comes. Just as the gathering of vultures shows there is a carcass nearby, so these signs indicate the end is near. Immediately after the anguish of those days, the sun will be darkened, the moon will give no light, the stars will fall from the sky, and the powers in the heavens will be shaken. And then, at last, the sign that the Son of Man is coming will appear in the heavens, and there will be deep mourning among all the peoples of the earth. And they will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. And he will send out his angels with the mighty blast of a trumpet, and they will gather his chosen ones from all over the world, from the farthest ends of the earth and heaven. Now learn a lesson from the fig tree. When its branches bud and its leaves begin to sprout, you know that summer is near. In the same way, when you see all these things, you can know his return is very near. Right at the door, I tell you the truth, this generation will not pass from the scene until all things take place. Heaven and earth will disappear, but my words will never disappear. However, no one knows the day or hour when these things will happen, not even the angels in heaven or the Son himself. Only the Father knows. When the Son of Man returns, it will be like it was in Noah's day. In those days before the flood, the people were enjoying banquets and parties and weddings right up until the time Noah entered his boat. People didn't realize what was going on until the flood came and swept them away. That is the way it will be when the Son of Man comes. Two men will be working together in the field, one will be taken and the other left. Two women will be grinding flour at the mill, one will be taken, one will be left. So you too must keep watch, for you don't know the day your Lord is coming. Understand this. If a homeowner knew exactly when a burglar was coming, he would keep watch and not permit his house to be broken into. You also must be ready all the time, for the Son of Man will keep when least expected. A faithful, sensible servant is one to whom the master can give the responsibility of managing his other household servants and feeding them. If the master returns and finds that the servant has done a good job, there will be a reward. I tell you the truth, the master will put this servant in charge of all he owns. But what if the servant is evil and thinks, "My master won't be back for a while," and he begins beating the other servants, partying and getting drunk? The master will return unannounced and unexpected, and he will cut the servant to pieces and assign him a place with the hypocrites. In that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Very heavy words. Okay. 25. Parable of the 10 bridesmaids. Then the kingdom of heaven will be like 10 bridesmaids, who took their lamps and went to meet the bridegroom. 5 of them were foolish, and 5 were wise. The 5 who were foolish didn't take enough olive oil for their lamps. But the other 5 were wise enough to take extra olive oil. When the bridegroom was delayed, they all became drowsy and fell asleep. At midnight, they were roused by the shout, "Look, the bridegroom is coming. Come out and meet him." All the bridesmaids got up and prepared their lamps. Then the 5 foolish ones asked the others, Please give us some of your oil because our lamps are going out." But the others replied, "We don't have enough for all of us. Go to a shop and buy some for yourselves." But while they were gone to buy oil, the bridegroom came. Then those who were ready went in with him to the marriage feast, and the door was locked. Later, when the other 5 bridesmaids returned, they stood outside calling, "Lord, Lord, open the door for us." But he called back, "Believe me, I do not know you." So you, too, must keep watch, for you do not know the day or hour of my return. Parable of the 3 servants, and this one does have a little margin note that I will read to you as well. 25:14. Again, the kingdom of heaven can be illustrated by the story of a man going on a long trip. He called together his servants and entrusted his money to them while he was gone. He gave 5 bags of silver to one, 2 bags of silver to another, and 1 bag of silver to the last, dividing it in proportion to their abilities. He then left on his trip. The servant who received the 5 bags of silver began to invest the money and earned 5 more. The servant with 2 bags of silver also went to work and earned 2 more. But the servant who received the 1 bag of silver dug a hole in the ground and hid the master's money. After a long time, their master returned from his trip and called them to give an account of how they had used the money. The servant to whom he trusted 5 bags of silver came forward with 5 more. "Master, you gave me 5 bags of silver to invest, and I have earned 5 more." The master was full of praise. "Well done, my good and faithful servant. You have been faithful in handling this small amount, so I will give you more responsibilities. Let's celebrate together." The servant who received 2 bags of silver came forward and said, "Master, you gave me 2 bags of silver to invest, and I have earned 2 more." The master said, "Well done, my good and faithful servant. You have been faithful in handling this small amount, so I will give you so many more responsibilities. Let's celebrate together." Then the servant with the 1 bag of silver came and said, "Master, I know you were a harsh man, harvesting crops you didn't plant and gathering crops you didn't cultivate. I was afraid I would lose your money, so I hid it in the earth. Look, here is your money back." But the master replied, "You wicked and lazy servant. If you knew I harvested crops I didn't plant and gathered crops I didn't cultivate, why didn't you deposit my money in the bank? At least I could have gotten some interest on it." Then he ordered, "Take the money from this servant and give it to the one with 10 bags of silver. To those who use well what they are given, even more will be given, and they will have an abundance. But from those who do nothing, even with what little they are taken, they will be taken away. Now throw this useful servant into outer darkness. There will be weeping and gnashing of teeth." And this is just a little margin here. One day when you are in heaven, someone will thank you for the way you touched their life with hope and encouragement. The words you will take by surprise. Soon another person may seek you out, and then another, and then another. As you listen to each other's story, you will discover all the ways that God uses your life when you weren't even aware of it. Most often, it may not have been the big things you did, but the small things. A spoken word that wasn't planned, a spontaneous act of kindness, a loving touch, or a simple prayer of concern. Thank you, God, for the blessings you bring through our ordinary lives as we learn to follow your example in loving others. So sometimes what we do with what God gives us, what little he gives us, we can do a lot. I think that's beautiful to remember. Okay, lastly, 25:31, the final judgment. "But when the Son of Man comes in his glory and all the angels with him, then he will sit upon his glorious throne. All the nations will be gathered in his presence, and he will separate the people as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. He will place the sheep at his right hand and the goats on his left. Then the king will say to those on his right, 'Come, you who are blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you for the creation of the world. For I was hungry, and you fed me. I was thirsty, and you gave me a drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me into your house. I was naked, and you gave me clothing. I was sick, and you cared for me. I was in prison, and you visited me. Then these righteous ones reply, Lord, when did we ever see you, or hungry, or feed you, or thirst, or give you a drink, or a stranger and show you hospitality, or naked and give you clothes? When did we ever see you sick or in prison and visit you? And the king will say, I tell you the truth, when you did it to one of the least of these my brothers and sisters, you were doing it to me. Then the king will turn to those on the left and say, Away with you, cursed ones, into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his demons. For I was hungry, and you didn't feed me. I was thirsty, and you didn't give me a drink. I was a stranger, and you didn't invite me into your home. I was naked, and you didn't give me clothing. I was sick and in prison, and you didn't visit me. Then they will reply, Lord, when did we ever see you hungry or thirsty or strong, or a stranger or naked or sick or in prison and not help you? And he will answer, I tell you the truth, when you refuse to help the least of my brothers and sisters, you are refusing to help me. And they will go away into eternal punishment, but the righteous will go into eternal life. Because love your neighbor like you love thyself is our most important commandment, besides loving God with all our heart. So how we show up as people to others is important. It does reflect the church, and it does reflect God. And I think that's a beautiful end note. As we wrap up today, we are going to end Matthew next time that we get around to it, hopefully by Easter. And I hope you have a good week. And I hope that the Lord touches your heart.